To my dear friend who lives in the world beside mine, I write to you at my desk while my front door listens with a kind patience. The night is calm and the grain of the wood is steady, which is good news for the promise I need to keep. I owe you a clear account of my day because the way I crossed my thresholds today keeps echoing in my mind. You once asked what it feels like when a door knows your name and weighs your intent, so I will tell you plainly. It feels like speaking to an elder who saw you grow up and can tell when you soften the truth to avoid a hard talk. This morning my door greeted me with a low hum that means it has a question about yesterday's conduct. I set my hand to the brass plate and asked for consent to leave for work. The door asked me if I would face the conversation I had promised to have with my sister after supper. I wanted an easy morning, so I said yes in a vague way and hoped the hinge would not hear the doubt. The hinge heard the doubt and the latch stayed firm, and my day began with a lesson. I do not mind the lesson now that I am calm, but I was not calm then. The door suggested a brief pledge to restore my passage reputation for the day. I repeated the pledge with care and I meant it with my whole chest, and the latch lifted by a finger's width. That is how an honest morning starts here, with a small truth and a gentle click. When I finally stepped into the corridor, the lobby door sent me the blight ping through the apartment network. The ping carried a reminder that the building charter requires quiet crossings until 8, which I had met. Even so, the lobby door asked for 2 breaths of stillness as a nod to its age. I stood quietly and listened to the patterns in its old oak, and I felt the calm return. When I reached the street, the bakery door across the way tilted to watch the school run, and it warmed the air near its jamb. People often say our doors have tempers, but I think they have moods like we do, and moods grow from memory. A door that has seen gentle hands and fair words tends to open like a sunrise. A door that has lived through shouting and slamming learns to guard itself. My city carries both kinds, and most are somewhere in between, like the rest of us. Work today took me to the registry for threshold treaties because I serve as a translator for stubborn doors. The registry is a quiet hall filled with cases where words must be shaped like keys. A young family asked for help because the lift door had started to check their bags one by one with slow care. The lift door had sensed stress and took it as a signal to demand slower crossings for safety. The family felt judged and late and helpless, and their little boy cried because he thought the door disliked him. I sat with the lift door and the family and let them speak in turn. The door asked for proof that the bags would stop overloading the cable as they did last week. The family offered to stagger trips and to teach the boy a small greeting tap that calms the sensor. We wrote the promise into a short treaty and signed on the brass plate, and the lift door relaxed. The boy tried the greeting tap and the doors slid open with a soft cheer, and he smiled in a way that made the day brighter. That is the heart of our system, friend, not fear but habits that teach care at the borderline. Boundaries feel harsh when they hide their reasons, but they feel kind when they share them. I wish you had seen the next case, which was a hard one, and it still stings as I write. An emergency, crew needed fast entry to a clinic room where an elder was short of breath. The air door at the sterile wing had to weigh 2 duties at once, which was safety and speed. It stalled for 5 long seconds to purge the corridor, which is correct by the charter. Those seconds felt like an ocean to the grandson who was crying to be let in. Our protocol allows a compassion escort door to open beside a strict door when a human heart is breaking. I called for the escort and it formed a short passage with low airflow risk, enough for 1 person. The grandson passed through with a steady oath to keep his hands clear and his voice soft. The elder breathed easier after the treatment and later thanked the room for its care. Tours remember thanks the way we remember kindness on a bad day. A thank you is not a spell, but it is almost as strong as a good habit. By noon the sun made my street bright and I returned home to eat something simple. The fridge door has a strict stance after midnight, so I have learned to respect it earlier in the day. Today it asked me to put the greens at the front so I do not forget them again. I agreed without argument because the evidence was clear in the wilted bag. We signed with a thumbprint on the basket, which is our silly little ritual, and it works. You might wonder how we keep track of promises across a city of doors that speak. We use a reputation ledger that records crossings as brief notes rather than full transcripts. The ledger keeps no gossip and no drama, only signals like trust, strain, delay, and rest. A rough day can lower your signal, but a fair apology lifts it faster than people expect. I have learned to treat my own entries like my breath, which is to notice when it hurries and choose to slow it. After lunch I walked to the old quarter where the gates date back 3 generations. A corporate courier argued with the stone arch that guards the small square. The company sells auto locks that claim to simulate consent with predictive inputs. Our charter argues that simulation is not consent, and the arch takes that to heart. The courier wanted to demo the device on the arch, which would have been a deep insult. I stepped in with a translator badge and asked for a pause and a cup of water for everyone. The arch spoke first and told a short story about a siege in the last unsettled year. The courier softened when he heard that the arch lost 2 stones that year to heat and force. I offered a narrow trial on an abandoned shed where no memory would be harmed. The courier accepted because this shed holds no witness status in our district. We tested the auto lock and it behaved like a mirror without a mind. The arch thanked us for the respect and the courier took notes and promised to report, which seemed honest. I wish all debates moved that way, through patience and a change of target. As the afternoon leaned toward evening, I met a friend at the rescue workshop for doors with a trauma. The workshop smells like cedar oil and tea, and the staff speak quietly even when the street is loud. We listened while the warehouse door told of years of rush and rough hands. The staff will place it with a community centre where slow crossings are the rule. A new life suits a door as it suits a person, and it is never too late for that. On my way back I passed the school where children practice threshold civics with tiny treaties in their notebooks. One child recited a pledge to the gin door that sounded like a poem about trust and timing. A teacher smiled and told me the class now greets the door with a tap that echoes like a small drum. A good habit at 12 makes a good neighbour at 20 and a good steward at 40. Evening brought me home before the Amma bell, which is the hour our building rests its hinges. My front door felt lighter than in the morning because I had kept my small promises. It asked me how the hospital case ended, and I told it the truth and thanked it for the morning lesson. The door released a contented click that sounded like a nod. Then the lobby door signalled that it wished to speak about our long history. I went down with a cloth and polish because that gesture matters to it. We stood together in the dim light while I worked the polish into the carvings that frame the glass. The lobby door asked me to tell you something simple but true about borders. It asked me to write that borders are not walls but places where you decide who you mean to be. I promised I would send those words across to you tonight. The lobby door has seen 5 building managers who treated it like scenery and 2 who treated it like a colleague. The 2 left it better than they found it, and people still hold the handle with care because of them. I want to be that kind of neighbour for my own doors, and I want to be that kind of friend for you. You asked me once if our system makes life slow, and the honest answer is yes, but not always. It slows the moments that ought to be slow, which are the moments near care, risk, promise and grief. It speeds the moments that ought to be fast, which are the moments near danger and consent already given. The rest of life keeps its normal rhythm, which is to say it changes and stumbles and learns. I believe your world could borrow one habit from ours without changing your laws. When you stand in a doorway, pause just long enough to hear your own intent, even if no door listens. That tiny pause is a permission you give yourself to choose your next step with care. A pause saved my sister and me from a long week of anger tonight. I kept the promise I pledged this morning and wed to her with plain words. She was ready to argue and I was ready to rush away, but the kitchen door would not allow a fight across the threshold. We moved to the table, and we talked like people who want to keep seeing each other. It was not neat, but it was fair, and fairness makes room for a next day. My door asked later if I felt lighter, and I did, and I told it so. I wish you could meet the new tenant across the hall who arrived with a rusted factory door. The door is loud when startled, but if you keep your voice low, it sings in a low way that steadies the corridor. Our floor agreed to give it extra rest hours while it learns to trust footfalls again. I think we will like living with it, and I hope it will like us. There are days when the system feels fussy and I want to run, and on those days I remember the siege the Arch described. That story reminds me that consent is not a hurdle but a shelter we keep in good repair. It keeps both sides human, even when one side is wood and brass and long memory. When I walk at night I test every door I pass with a small bow in my posture, which makes me kinder than I used to be. The bow is nothing and the bow is everything, which is how good manners work. I'm not sure if I ever told you this, but I used to slam doors while I was young. I thought the slam made me strong, and I was wrong, and it took years to unlearn. Some days I slip, and a hinge reminds me with a long sigh that feels like a hand on the shoulder. I am grateful for that, even when it stings. In our city a few people campaign for a return to silent doors that open to any hand at any time. They miss the feeling of pure convenience, which I do understand. I think about the clinic case and the warehouse door and the arch, and I stay with consent because it keeps the smallest people safe. It has also made me a better sister and neighbour and friend. You asked how humour survives under so many rules, and I promise you that humour thrives here. My fridge refuses my late snacks with a line that makes me laugh even when I am sulking. The line is kind and firm and works better than scolding ever did. A market stall hangs a sign that reads, "Small bribe to the door is fruit polish, which is both a joke and good practice." We are not saints, we are citizens, and citizens need wit to endure their own habits. Before I close, I want to tell you about the door that envies revolving doors because this is my favourite odd sadness. It is the lobby door, and it told me once that revolving doors are always touched and never known. I said that being known is better than being touched, and it was quiet for a long time. I think it liked the thought because it keeps its glass cleaner now and watches faces with a kinder gaze. You might ask if doors fall in love, and I do not know, and I am careful about that word. I do know that doors keep loyalties that look like care and that care changes how they sound. A cared for door clicks like a good sentence and rests like a satisfied breath. That is what my door sounds like tonight while I write. The city gate has been slow for a week, which means the council is worried about freight and wants to count more closely. We will adjust our morning routes and let the trucks sleep at the depot instead of idling under the gate. People grumble and then remember that logistics is patience with a map. I think you would like the council because they listen more than they speak. A good meeting is like a good crossing in that you leave with more care than you entered. I hope your day was kind to you and that your thresholds let you pass with ease. If one of them felt hostile, try a small thank you tomorrow anyway and see if the room feels lighter. The change might be in you or it might be in the hinge, and either way is a win. I keep a cloth in my bag for chant polishing because respect is portable. Respect also makes strangers into neighbours faster than anything I know. The baker on our corner names her oven door after a grandparent because the heat feels like old patience. She says the name aloud each dawn, then the bread sings as it rises. These are small things, but small things make cities. Will you write back about the thresholds you cross most often and how it treats you? Tell me how you feel before and after, and we will see if your intent leaves a trace. I will map your notes into our styles of greeting and send you a set of taps that match your rhythm. Your hallway might feel different by the end of the week, and I will be glad for that. I wish I could share the scent of cedar oil from the workshop with this letter, but words will have to do. Imagine the smell of a new pencil mixed with tea, and you will be close. The scent means repair, and repair means the past is real and also not a prison. Doors know this better than we do, which is why they forgive slowly and then fully. I am slowing my writing now because my building is near its rest bell. When the bell sounds, hinges halt negotiations and ask for quiet like an elder calling for lights out. I will end here with a promise to wake early and thank the lobby door first thing. The last thing I will do before sleep is lay my palm on the grain of my door and tell it the truth. The truth is that I am glad it kept me in this warning. The truth is that I am trying to be as careful with people as I am with thresholds. The truth is that you are on my mind when I cross and when I pause. Stay well, and stand kindly at your borders, and you will be met with kindness more often than not. From your friend who lives in the world beside yours, I send you quiet and a small click of approval. Thank you for staying with my letter until the last line. If you enjoyed this message, please tap like so more friends can find our little doorway between worlds. Please subscribe for the next letter because I have more stories from the corridors and the gates. Leave a comment with a note about the threshold you cross most and what it teaches you. If you wish to support the channel, you can use the QR code on the screen or the link in the description. The description also holds links to other series that explore very different corners of our universe. I hope you will watch those as well and tell me which paths you liked. Until next time, travel kindly and pause with care at every door,